ask the clerk to call the roll.
Blunier. Leach.
Here.
Lehman.
Here.
Menold.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
Parrott.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no public hearings tonight. I do believe the Park District wanted to talk. Joel?
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Joel Dickerson. I'm the Executive Director here with the Morton Park District, and I'm here to talk about the 4th of July and what we have planned for this year. But let me take just a second real quick before I start, just to, I don't get to come here very often and talk to you all, so just to thank the board. You guys, we've worked together on a number of projects over the 6 years that I've been able to be here, and you guys have been awesome to work with, and I think we've gotten a lot of really good stuff done for the community, and then your staff as well. Craig, we work together on stuff all the time, and it's always a pleasure working with Craig and Chief, everybody, Julie. Just a pleasure to work with you guys. I've worked in a number of places, and I always say the cooperation and stuff that we get here is second to none. So thank you guys all for giving me a time to come in and talk. So 4th of July, we've worked with the Village of Morton for a number of years, financing the fireworks show that's typically been held out at the VFW, the Morton VFW, on the 3rd of July. This year we are taking over the celebration and relocating it to McClellan Park. We're very excited about that, and we're able to keep the VFW involved as well. We are excited about it because we have 40 acres of open space at McClellan Park, open unobstructed views, as well as another 20 acres that we are partnering with the United Methodist Church across the street from McClellan Park, as well as another 20 acres with Grace Church, just about a quarter mile to the south of McClellan Park. So between the four sites, 80 open acres of space, which I think gives us a lot of confidence moving forward with the event, that we're going to have plenty of space for everybody to be able to come out, enjoy it, and not feel like we're on top of each other. So some of the exciting things that we've got planned for this year, we've upped the budget for the fireworks, so we will have a bigger show in the plans. We're very excited about that. The Park District is increasing the amount that we typically fund for the fireworks themselves, and then we've partnered with a number of local businesses to make this all possible. So some of our large sponsors that we have signed on, we have Opperly Construction from here in town, Morton Rentals, obviously, pretty awesome to have them in our community here. They have pretty much everything that you would need to run a large-scale event, from tents to toilets and everything in between. So we're very excited to be partnering with them. Mike Murphy Ford has made a very generous donation towards the project that's going to be very helpful in making it all happen. And then we're going to have a number of activities that weren't necessarily there in the past. We've got live music planned. We've got Cousin Eddie and Joe Stam Band. We'll be setting up a live stage out of the park for a concert. It's going to be in tandem with the Morton Fine Arts Association, who typically runs our summer concert series at Idlewood Park. So they definitely have a handle on how to run the outdoor music for our community, and have done a great job in the past. So we're confident that's going to be great. We have our mobile ops. Let me get this right. Laser Ops mobile gaming trailer, who's going to be setting up a large laser tag area out in the park for the kids. Morton Rentals is providing a number of inflatables that are sponsored by a bunch of local businesses, and name off a few of those. We have Lovell Orthodontics, Better Banks, Chris Gergen Country Financial. We've got the Morton Community Foundation helping out. We have Gina Jeffrey State Farm Office, Synergetic Technologies, and Blue Jays Learning Center have all teamed up to partner with us on the event. So the VFW will be setting up a beer tent at McClellan Park, so that'll be something that we've not done at the park before, but we've worked, and I think we've got a good plan moving forward to make it a positive experience. And there will be an area that is reserved for that, and there will be an area that is reserved for no alcohol as well. So parking is something that we're working on currently between the three sites. I feel like we've got got a lot of parking, but we do know that there's going to be some overflow as well. So just wanted to come in, tell you what we've got. We're excited to partner with you all again for this event. It's been a super positive thing for the community, and I think the new changes that we've got coming are going to be make it more accessible to more people and be a real positive thing. I'm really looking forward to Independence Day. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those while I'm here.
Joel, I think it's a great idea, great plan. And the visibility from there, I mean, you don't have, if parking's an issue or whatever, you can see it from downtown.
Right.
It'll be awesome from anywhere in town. So I think it's a great idea.
Awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Joe.
Okay. Thank you all.
Anybody in the audience like to make a comment? All right, seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hello, I'm Maria Lehman. I live on 63 Shiloh Street, and I am just here in support of the two ordinances about yield signs in Fieldstone neighborhood, and also an updated railing on East Jefferson over Bull Creek. And with our growing family and with our growing neighborhood that is expanding quickly, rapidly, with lots of little kids, I think safety should be our first priority, and that is just a pathway to Lincoln School where all of our kids go in Fieldstone, and all the kids walk to school, they come home from school, and that's right during work hours as well, and so people are coming to and from work. And I think it's really important that we have yield signs in our neighborhood as well as an updated railing, and I would appreciate if the board would support that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Josh Malavolti. I'm a resident. I'm actually following up after Mrs. Lehman with a similar topic. I'm at 321 Pocono in the Fieldstone subdivision, and I'm in support of the yield signs. And also, I believe there's some few intersections that do require some stop signs in that neighborhood. I've actually lived in that neighborhood for 4 years now in 2 different locations in that neighborhood, and I've observed and also been directly impacted with a couple near-miss events in that neighborhood that have almost been like side swipes and T-bone events, that I do feel that safety needs to be reviewed in that neighborhood with some of the intersections that are there. I'm particularly interested in Monroe, Pocono, and York. Those 2 areas, especially the Monroe Pocono, is a very dangerous area. People kind of blow around that corner. So if the board would, I would hope that the board would find that to be an interest in terms of safety for the township of Morton. So thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Anyone else? All right, if not, the consent agenda tonight is the approval of the minutes. Regular meeting, April 19th, 2021. The special meeting, April 21, 2021. The closed session, April 5th, 2021. And the closed session, April 19th, 2021, and the approval of the bills.
I move to approve.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Call the roll.
Leach.
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Menold.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Parrott.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, tonight I have the ordinance 22-01, an ordinance amending section 3-8-6, the Morton Municipal Code regarding the number of available Class E liquor license.
Motion to approve. Second.
I'd like council to explain that.
It has been the longstanding historical practice within the village not to maintain available unissued licenses. We had some change in licenses, some businesses in light of COVID not maintaining certain licenses, and so the proposed ordinance would simply update the maximums in your code to mirror the total number of outstanding issued licenses, which is the way we've maintained licensing for a vast number of years.
Any questions?
No question, but I would like to say thank the village administrator for the detail. It's much easier to understand what we're doing.
Very true. If not, call the roll.
Leach.
Yes?
Lehman.
Yes.
Menold.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Parrot.
Yes.
Motion passes.
That's all I have, village clerk.
So 95% of the time, this is the part of the meeting where I say those familiar words, "Nothing tonight, Your Honor." Tonight, though, being my last meeting, I do want to take a minute to thank you all. Over the past 4.5 years, you've all been a great help to me, from the trustees and Mayor Kaufman to the entire village staff, to our attorney Pat as well. All of you have been great to work with and incredibly helpful when I've had questions or needed clarification on things along the way. I want the citizens of Morton to know how lucky we are to have top-notch leadership and character in our town, from the mayor and the board to the department heads and to the staff all throughout the village. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention leadership from years and decades past also. They made wise decisions that paved the way for so many opportunities that we still benefit from today. In addition to the village, there are so many other groups, organizations, and boards I could name off that have also contributed so much to where we are today. So often these things get taken for granted, but in the last several years I've seen firsthand just how lucky we are here, and it's made me proud, as I hope we all are, to be a Mortonite. Thank you. And with that, nothing else tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you for your very kind words. Very true, though. Village administrator.
I have one item tonight, Your Honor. I have given you a list of the tourism grants for the spring 2020 for approval. In total, a brief overview, there are a few new ones, as you will see noted onto the right. This is a total of $130,700 in grants. As you know, most of these are recurring, but did not occur last year. I think a lot of these are truly going to be great events this year. Will be told that they are approved pending like a month before. I want them to let me know that they are truly going to go ahead with their event, because I don't want to pay out the money and then something happen and it get canceled. So these are approvals for future payments, basically.
All right, we have a motion.
So moved. Second.
Any questions?
Like a comment that looks like we're going to be busy.
Yes, a lot going on.
A lot of neat events, and we just are very hopeful that we can pull them all off this time.
Very true. Any other questions, comments? Not, call the roll.
Lehman.
Yes.
Menold.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Parrot.
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
All right, Chief of Police,
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
welcome home. Corporation Counsel,
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Director of Fire and Emergency Services,
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
all right, and Director of Public Works.
One item tonight, Your Honor. In front of you is Resolution 01-22. This is an IDOT resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code.
So moved. Second.
Just a quick, this is a supplemental MFT resolution to authorize additional expenditures for salt purchase. We budgeted $200,000 for IDOT, or not IDOT, but calendar year, from 1/1 through 12/31 of this year, and we ended up spending $215,000. So I'd like to ask for your approval.
Question, unit cost of salt quite a bit higher, or usage?
Cost was a little higher than the original. It was 80, I don't have it in front, it was $86 and change per ton. But we got a full barn out there ready to go for next year, so we will not have to order anything else till next calendar year.
Any other questions? Call the roll.
Menold.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Parrot.
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
That's all I have tonight, Your Honor.
Okay. Zoning and code enforcement,
I
Brad?
have two items tonight, Your Honor. First item is ordinance 22-02, an ordinance making amendments to the definition of business signs to Title 10 of the Morton Municipal Code.
Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
And Brad, would you explain it?
Yes, we currently have a definition for business signs. This adds a little bit of language to that definition. What this basically does is, currently a freestanding business sign is located on the property that the business is located. If you were to add another business sign on that currently, that becomes an advertising sign. That is not allowed. This would now allow for another business to put their sign on that same freestanding sign, as long as that business is adjacent to that property. So to give an example, the Farm and Fleet freestanding signs you currently see, if you were to, if somebody were to have a business adjacent to their parcel, they would be able to put their sign on those signs, if that makes sense. I hope I explained that.
Any questions?
One quick question. The parcels have to be directly adjacent, or can it be across a road?
They would have to be adjacent, touch each other.
Okay.
Correct.
I ask council, I guess my question is, how does this not become a billboard? I thought anything that was an advertisement that wasn't on your property became a billboard.
Well, that's why we're adding additional language to definition of business sign to distinguish this from a billboard. So we have a relatively broad definition of advertising sign. A business sign is not an advertising sign. So our business sign definition was narrowed to only include a sign drawing attention to a product or service offered on the parcel. Now we've extended that to allow for the adjoining property owner. But going forward, it's my opinion that there would remain a clear distinction between the advertising sign, like a billboard, and the business sign, if only based on that proximity. So you could have Farm and Fleet and an adjoining business, but you couldn't have, a business up the road, down the street, or not in town on that same sign.
And how do we then prevent a billboard from, that might be on business property, from advertising for a business that's next door type thing? I guess my question is does this allow proliferation of billboards?
In my opinion, it does not.
Okay.
It does not allow proliferation of billboards. Simply gives us a way to distinguish common signs or mutual use signs from a billboard.
And then, Brad, as far as how do we determine how much signage a business is allowed to have? Is it square footage of their frontage of the building or their property, or what?
Currently, our ordinance reads 1 linear foot equals 1 square foot of signage. So that has not changed.
So if the sign is not on their property, did we put the wording in so that they can't say that I don't have that much signage and they do something else on their property? I guess I was worried that if we say that, and I'll use the example given, if Farm and Fleet allows another sign to go on its sign, did we put in a prevention so that whatever goes in there can't put up additional signage in front of their business? I'm worried that if they could have a 100 square foot sign and it's on the Farm and Fleet but not on their property, did we write it in such a manner that they can't have an additional 100 square feet in front of their store?
Well, the language has not changed as far as it says 1 linear foot equals 1 square foot of signage. If we didn't put any language that limits the amount of signs, if that's
Well, what I'm worried is how do we say that the sign that's on the adjoining property counts against their property? Are we going to let them have 2 100-foot signs?
The intent in the ordinance is not to grant any business additional sign area. I don't recall the specific provisions on the area of signs offhand. I don't recall those specific to the signs are specific to the business, not to the physical situation of it. So I would, based on the fact that we're just expanding the definition of business sign and not creating a new defined type of sign, it's my opinion, subject to further review, and I'd be glad to look at the issue further and provide a supplemental opinion, but at this time, it's my opinion that our existing regulations are sufficient to where we're not creating an opportunity for a business to double their sign by putting one next door and one on their own premises.
So is there an urgent need to have this changed tonight?
There is a request for a business for a sign, so that is how this.
If we waited 2 weeks, would it be sufficient? Because I guess I'd prefer that we wait to ensure that council feels that it's written so that they can't double their
Yes, I
signage.
think absolutely we can wait.
Your Honor, I'd like to table the motion.
Second.
All right. Any other comments? Then let's call the roll call on the tabled motion first.
Newman.
Yes.
Parrott.
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Lehman.
No.
Menold.
Yes.
Motion to table passes.
Okay.
Second item tonight, Your Honor, is Ordinance 22-03, an ordinance making amendments regarding off-street parking of trailers to Title IX and Title X of the Morton Municipal Code.
Motion to approve.
Second.
You want to explain that a little bit, Brad?
Yeah, so I'll touch on Title 10, which is in zoning, and I'll let Chief Miller speak about Title 9. So in Title 10, we currently allow trailers, boats, et cetera, which are named to be parked in the side and rear of residential properties as long as they don't protrude past the front corner of the house. They also are required to be on a paved surface. This revision to the ordinance would allow all of those items to be parked on the driveway only, so they would no longer be allowed in the side yard or rear yard. And that's what's in Title 10 on the private side, which is what I enforce. Title 9 is on public right-of-way, which is what Chief Miller enforces.
And just kind of the reason we put some of those that were in Title IX back into Title 10 was just to kind of clear the job roles of who was to enforce them. So that was kind of one of the things we wanted to do, was look at that. As far as the Title IX on the parking on the street, not a lot is changing from the current ordinance the way it's written, other than we're limiting the time that a trailer can be on the road to a period of less than 48 hours. So a trailer can't be parked on the road for any time longer than 48 hours. If it is there for that duration of 48 hours, it must have an 18-inch cone with the reflective stripes on it, just to help with visualization that the trailer's on the road, trying to keep accidents from happening. One of the biggest complaints when we looked at this a few years back was just the visibility of the trailer being parked there and the worry of them getting hit by cars going by. And so trying to limit the time that they're on the road, make sure that they have the reflective cones to try and eliminate some of those problems as well. But that's the biggest change from the police standpoint side of Title IX. So.
Any other questions?
Couple comments on the allowing the parking trailers in the driveway now, but then disallowing the parking in the rear and side yards. I have some concerns on that based upon, and I understand the want to kind of clean the thing up and be enforceable, but my issue is, you know, when we passed the trailer ordinance a couple of years ago, I know some folks that made concessions and have, you know, a pad behind their house and bought a trailer, fixed a fence so that they get the trailer off the driveway like we requested they do. And then if we go back now we're saying that they can't do that now after they've done that, you know, not too long ago. So I have some concerns on that, and in a lot of cases, it's not possible to get a truck or trailer. In the case I'm my specific example, it's a small 6 by 8 foot landscape trailer that the gentleman just wheels back by hand, into his, around the backside of his garage. And I'm not necessarily saying that, I want to see 55 foot RVs, parked behind somebody's house, even if they're on pavement. But I think it's something that I would like to look into farther to see if we could, come to something that's both enforceable, but yet doesn't create a hardship for some of those that have already made concessions to meet the ordinance as it was passed a couple of years ago. As such, I'd like to make a motion to table this.
I'll second that.
All right, any other comments? Questions? All right, well then let's call the roll call on the table motion first.
Parrott.
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Mennel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Motion is approved to table the ordinance.
I have nothing else tonight, Chairman.
Okay. Village trustees, trustee Lehman.
I have something tonight, Your Honor.
Okay.
First, I would wish to move ordinance 22-04.
That follows the motion.
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay.
My wife and I have lived in Fieldstone subdivision coming on 8 years. We have seen this neighborhood grow exponentially over time. We love how active the neighborhood is. Throughout the year, especially in the spring and summertime, you'll see the kids of all ages out and about. Depending on the weather, you will almost always see people walking their dogs, jogging, riding bikes, etc. The streets are extremely busy with traffic as well, vehicle traffic as well. Many of these families are active in taking their children to extracurricular activities, parents going to and from work, etc. It is safe to say that the activity level and traffic within our neighborhood has only gone up over the past 8 years. Being that Lincoln School is only a few blocks away, the majority of the children walk or ride bikes to school when weather permits. If we could take a moment to watch a video, brief video of the neighborhood so everyone get a better idea of the layout. So this video was taken about 6 o'clock, so there's not going to be a lot of traffic because that's when most people are having dinner. But so this is the corner of right now of Shiloh and Monroe. I almost put music on, but I figured I didn't know what song to put on, so Pennsylvania there in Monroe, and then you can see that I ended up not taking a right there, but that street is actually getting built out, and so that's right now it says dead end, but it's truly not going to be a dead end. There's actually it's growing out, and it's actually they currently have the road already being made all the way out to Jackson. And this is one of the busiest corners for sure throughout the day. It's becoming the new Nebraska for those who know the business of Nebraska. So this is Oklahoma. It seems to be that many people take their kids and young drivers as well go to junior high and high school, and they take this road all the way to Jackson. Here's another intersection there. This goes on to Pocono Street. A good portion of these homes that you're seeing are young families with kids, young kids, and and it continues to grow. So this right here, you'll see a sign that says dead end. There's no sign, there's no yield sign there either. This says dead end. That is going to be not true very soon. So you can see there's a street going ahead that there's traffic cones on. They're extending that street out, connects all the way to Jefferson. Then here's York, in the corner of York and Pocono. It doesn't have a street sign either, so we're going back the other direction. But York also will be going all the way out. We'll go all the way to Jefferson as well. So right here, I want to show you one corner. Now these streets all do have stop signs. I'm going to take a left here, and the reason why I'm going to show you this one is because thankfully it took them a while, but eventually when we first were here, they didn't have a stop sign or a yield sign here. But eventually they did put a yield sign here. But this right here is and I'm not in the driver's seat, I'm in the passenger seat filming. But if I was in the driver's seat, you'd see how much this is a blind spot. But I can tell you that this street, right, the way that angle is, it is very difficult to see from your blind spot if someone's coming. And a lot of times people, because they see the yield sign, they don't stop. And of course that can definitely cause an endangerment. And so what I'm showing you now is, I think, well, what I was going to show is Oklahoma, and just taking Oklahoma all the way out. And what you'd see is all those corner streets, all the streets that go out, if you go head all the way out to the next neighborhood, the adjacent neighborhood across Jackson, every street has a stop sign all up until Jackson. Then once you get over to Jackson, on the other side, all those streets have yield signs. And so those are older homes that have probably been there for 30 plus years. And so my point being is, those are clearly someone at one point in time thought that those streets should have yield signs or stop signs. And so in this particular case, I would think that the Fieldstone should also have yield signs. And there's only one stop sign that I'm asking for. And I just want to make sure on the verbiage, which we'll get there in a second, I just want to make sure that meant stop sign. I did. Okay, make sure. And one moment. So I'm not alone in having almost been involved in a vehicle accident and almost getting hit by a vehicle while riding a bike at this point in the road, as we heard, of course, from someone else here this evening. I had many within our subdivision over the past few weeks that have asked me to advocate on their behalf for yield signs and or stop signs. And even though that there has not been any major accidents in this area, I still believe it's important. There are some that have felt that since there hasn't been major accidents, that's a reason to not have them. I personally think this is the wrong way to think. I think that we should be proactive in trying to prevent children and other people from being hit by vehicles, and I would ask for the board's support in voting yes on Ordinance 22-04.
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
Just a couple to ask is you looked at having the ordinance written. Did you talk to the police chief about any accident reports, and did he give you a reply if there were any?
We did talk, and he did give me a report and saying that in this subdivision there has not been a recorded accident, which is what I had stated earlier, that I think we should be proactive. The neighborhood is growing. I think that's not without chance. We heard from an individual here earlier today that he's been almost in accidents, and I'm thankful he wasn't involved in those accidents. It's quite possible it could have been different.
Right.
And so just like that time where I was on a bike and I almost got hit by a car, I'm thankful I didn't get hit by a car. I'm glad that wasn't a recorded accident.
Right, and that's the question I was going to ask is for yourself, what intersection was that at?
On that particular one, I almost get by a vehicle was on the Oklahoma, Oregon, the one that I'm asking for a stop sign. That's the one I almost got hit by when I was on a bike.
Okay, and so were you on Oklahoma or were you on Oregon? I'm just wanting to make sure I understand the flow.
I was on the side of the street.
Okay, but were you riding the bike in the street?
Yes, I was riding the bike on the street. There's no sidewalk on that area.
So were you on Oklahoma?
I was in Oklahoma.
Okay. The reason why I ask is I just want to make sure that I understand, as you look at it, the one thing is you weren't in your neighborhood. your neighborhood of Fieldstone is totally different than Oregon and Oklahoma. It is a different intersection there. But when you look at Fieldstone, and I don't mean to sound, rude here, but everybody, no one drives through Fieldstone to go anywhere. You're going home or you're leaving home and going to go somewhere, but it's not a through subdivision, which means if there's any near accidents or whatever, it's all the residents, the neighbors that live near you that would be doing that, because I don't drive through Fieldstone because I can't get anywhere other than to somebody's house. So it's not like it's a collector street like Nebraska, and you look at what Oregon has become, what you said, coming out Monroe, or even, I'm going to guess, the neighborhood that's south of Fieldstone. Those people probably cut through, use Oregon to get to Jackson. I mean, that's an easy street to see that you need something. The question that I have, though, is that you have families who have children who are concerned about making sure that they're safe, but then are they not concerned about other people's children and that they're not driving safely in Fieldstone? And that's the real question that I ask is, so do we need to put up yield signs at all those other different intersections in Fieldstone? It looked like, because I drove through there a couple times this weekend to understand what it looks like. It's different, than just looking down on a map. And so you have so many T's, but if I remember right, is Shiloh like you turn right and then it turns north? Is that correct?
I don't know the exact directions, but Shiloh is essentially a U that connects on Monroe and Oklahoma.
Right, and so, because I remember, and I don't remember if it's Shiloh, I thought that it might, but it was like you only went one block and then went another block, and so you went, and it was like you could never accelerate up to 30 miles an hour on that street, and then you came to a T, and I just looked at it and I thought, do we need signage there? There are sidewalks in the neighborhood, and it's the neighborhood people who live there who are driving, and if they're concerned about safety, why aren't they driving safe already? And so that's the first thing that I thought of. I'm not saying that we don't need something at Oregon and Oklahoma, but I'm wondering if we really need yield signs inside Fieldstone, because it is such a parochial neighborhood. It's just all you that live there, and no one travels through your neighborhood yet. But when Pennsylvania or Pocono get changed, it's all going to change again, and now you're going to be a collector street. One of those, I'm going to guess, is going to be. I think they've put curves in them so that they don't become collector streets. But so I guess what I was wondering is that do we need to really do something in Fieldstone? I didn't see, other than maybe the Monroe Pocono one, especially when Pocono gets extended farther north. But I guess the other ones, I just didn't see a need for the yield, but I did think that you needed something at Oregon and Oklahoma, especially because of Oregon being almost a collector street there. I drove around, I sat and watched traffic. It is a quiet street, and I guess what my thoughts were is that if we put up, signs, would we, and I'm going to tick off the superintendent of public works, but it seems like we should have some numbers. And I think before maybe we actually put down, and I'm not against putting in at least some signage at Oregon, Oklahoma, but it seems like we should at least count traffic so that we understand how busy those streets are, because I didn't see any more cars than you did when you were showing it. I'm not saying they're not there, I just wasn't there at school time or at the evening time. But the other thing that I thought is that how will we know what to do in the future once the traffic pattern changes? Would we change something, what we've already done? Shouldn't we have numbers, for those streets? Now, I realize that a street like Shiloh, which probably has less than 150, truck or car counts in a day may not be worth counting, but it would seem like we should at least count and have some data to work off of. To say that these are the intersections that we think, because the traffic count equipment also tells you the speed with which people are going through the intersections. So if they're going through a T at a faster rate, can we not tell you that it's an unsafe intersection? So it's from that perspective, I guess, I think we should count cars and traffic in the neighborhood before we make, a decision. But that's my personal opinion.
A few questions I
Sure.
guess I have for you. Appreciate your comments here. I guess going back, that was a long, said a lot of things. I guess going back to the very beginning, one thing you mentioned, you said, that's not area of a town that I'm at often. That's a neighborhood that's kind of separate, so there's not a lot of people going in and out of the neighborhood, just the people that live in the neighborhood. So if you personally aren't going to be driving in that neighborhood, so you're not going to get hit by a car, right? You're not going to get hit by a car because you're not driving that neighborhood. Someone that lives in, let's say, a neighborhood adjacent, or across the way, but they have no one that's in Fieldstone, so they have no reason that they'll be out that way, and they don't exercise, so they're not going to be running or riding bikes or doing anything. They don't have kids that are going to be going running and riding bikes. So let's just say hypothetically possible that they're just never going to go in that neighborhood. So if that was the case, then there shouldn't be yield signs because they're not going to get hit ever.
No, what I'm saying is that if other people from other neighborhoods don't go in there, if 95% of the traffic is people who live in Fieldstone, and you're telling us that it's dangerous, wouldn't it be? But you're also telling us it's young adults who have young children, and they're concerned about safety of their children. Shouldn't they be concerned about the safety of everybody in the neighborhood? And does a yield sign enforce safety? And the only reason why
It's a reminder for safety, right? A yield sign is more or less a reminder for safety. You're yielding.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but on my street, I live on the corner of Dunn and Missouri. My street's 2 blocks long. I have a stop sign out there. I feel bad, when I'm outside, whether I'm cutting the grass or just sitting, because there's a lot of touch and go. I don't see full stops at a stop sign. And my point of saying that is that I feel bad because I have neighbors who are breaking the law, but they really don't need to do anything more than just slow down to make sure there isn't a car coming, because Missouri has a whole lot more traffic, especially when school's either going to start or ends. And I look at it and I say, this stop sign seems to be severe. I don't know that it's actually necessary because there's, 40 homes at most, not even that live on Dunn Street. You either go out in Nebraska or you go out to Missouri. So from that, the stop sign seems to be too much. But there's never been an accident, but I don't think it's because of the stop sign. I think it's because people just get so used to touch and go. And it's the term that I would use is that familiarity breeds contempt. We don't even think about it. After we run the stop sign, 15 times, I don't have to use it because I don't exit onto Dunn Street. But just making sure the chief was not going to catch me here.
He'll be watching
admitting guilt. But the point though is that there are people who live there who they're looking for cars. They're not really looking for the stop sign, because if the stop sign was what they were looking for, they would stop. But a lot don't, and that happens on all those other streets that you said have stop signs. The yield signs would make more sense. So the question is do we need to put up a yield sign? And I'm not saying we don't, but wouldn't it be nice to have the data for the traffic in the neighborhood now and for the future to make a comparison back to? That's all I'm saying. And then from that, get the data and then make the decisions on. Other than the Oregon, Oklahoma, I don't have a problem with putting a stop sign there, but if the chief and public works superintendent don't think it's necessary, I'm not sure that I have the information to say that it is or isn't, but I understand what you're saying. But coming out off of Shiloh and Pocono, you've got lots of line of sight both directions.
If I could.
Go ahead.
It sounds like, based on this discussion that's taking place, it sounds like we ought to turn it over to the appropriate staff and let them look at it and look at what the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices would recommend, and have staff determine what's appropriate in those locations and bring it back to us if they determine there's a need for signage at any one of these intersections. I think we could sit here and argue this all night, but I think it should be done at staff level and then brought back to us.
And I would like to add that safety is the utmost concern of all of us. Everybody, there's no question that safety is our concern. And I believe that this came on pretty fast, and I think we need to go about it in an organized and orderly fashion. And I agree with you, Ken, that we should allow our staff to bring back a recommendation with a little more time and consideration put into it.
I guess what I'd throw out there, and I'd love to hear understanding of why, because I'm kind of confused here. We're not asking to put stop signs in, we're asking to put yield signs in these areas. There's one stop sign, which is changing a yield sign to a stop sign, and that's the one that has the blind spot that you're saying that there's a congested pool. So it sounds like you're possibly in agreement there, but not in agreement to the yield signs. My question, more or less, and I wish the video would have shown it, however, if you were to continue driving in Oklahoma, every single street on Oklahoma, every street that's converging there, diverging, every street has a stop sign. Now, one could say that that's a little bit busier of a street, maybe, right? So maybe that's why they have stop signs. They're not yield signs, they're stop signs, okay? Now you head across Jefferson, now you head over to another neighborhood. Neighborhood's actually, it's a lot older of a neighborhood. Still young families over there, but it's, if you're comparing neighborhoods to Fieldstone and the subdivision across Jackson, that subdivision is definitely older. Point being is there's not as many young families out and about constantly. I'm not sure what time of the day you were, but if you're anywhere that's time from around after school, before school, typically those are the busiest times of the day, and there's a lot of traffic out there. And I guess my point being is if you had to continue out that older neighborhood that's across the street there on Jackson, you'd notice that every diverging street, which isn't very busy, they all have yield signs, every single one. I grew up in Autumn Ridge, yield signs, stop signs, the entire neighborhood. Not a young neighborhood, quite the opposite actually. A lot of retirees and such, empty nesters in that neighborhood, but it's full of yield signs and stop signs. When I'd go on my jogs, I'd go over to Thornridge. Thornridge does have a lot of young families. Thornridge, yield signs, stop signs, the entire, and a good portion of the neighborhood, not all the neighborhood, but a portion of it. And I guess my point being is we're not asking for stop signs here. I'm asking for yield signs. And it's not just me, it's many people that are our constituents, those that we represent. And last week, 2 weeks ago, we voted on bettering the safety at the school, right? And that was important. And we were putting a $75,000 plus sign, in at the school, for good reason. It's for safety. And it's for, if there's a way to be able to provide a little bit more safety for these kids, I think that's something that's important to do.
If I could add, I appreciate your concern, and we've had some discussion, but I think there are some inconsistencies on some of your comparisons. And I drove around with the mayor because he wanted to look, but there is not one in Orchard Hills sign. And I just want to point out some of the
I didn't say Orchard Hills, I don't think.
No, I know. I'm just saying as you go through Orchard Hills, which is a similar one to the south of Jefferson, there's 2 stop signs coming on at Jefferson. I think there's approximately 10 T intersections in Orchard Hills. Summerfield, I think there's some inconsistencies in Thornridge. There are stop signs going on to Stoneway, as that is identified as a collector street. So I'm just saying there's some inconsistencies. I'm not arguing with your concern, but I think I think the consistency, and we can look at these, and I appreciate Trustee Newman's comments, but there are 54 yield signs at T intersections in town, and I think it's been a consistent policy for many decades. I think both chiefs are here, and I think they would support that too. But there are hundreds of the similar ones that you mentioned tonight, hundreds that do not have them. So I'm not saying we don't look at them, but I think there are some inconsistencies with the comments here tonight. And you had made a comment, because they see yield signs, they don't stop at Oregon and Oklahoma. Those are concerning comments to me, because a yield, you're supposed to stop. It's Illinois state statute that's a requirement to yield even when not having a sign. So I would like a little more feedback and a little more time to look at some of these, but I think there's some inconsistencies here, and if we're going to vote tonight to add them to Fieldstone, we really need to look at them all throughout town and really change our mentality from what we've done for several decades. Even in Fieldstone alone, you've only mentioned the western half of Fieldstone. There's no mention of Rhode Island, Monroe, Rhode Island, Warwick, Pennsylvania, Monroe isn't even on here, Pennsylvania, Shiloh. So my only thing is, I think I would appreciate more time to look at this, just due to some inconsistencies here with our policy and how we've enforced this. I don't want to speak for Chief Miller here, and we've had a lot of discussions, and we had responded to you with a memo even, with our concerns. I have yet to hear back in response to that. But that's my only thing is, I think we've had a consistent policy. I understand the concern. We deal with a lot of these phone calls, from time to time, and we spend a lot of time on it. I have kids too in this town. In my subdivision, I don't have yield signs. It's a little smaller, but I don't want to get too carried away and change the course of where we're going here. When at the end of the day, as engineers, as communities, the MUTCD that Trustee Newman mentioned, that's a Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. This is the approved standard, national standard for all streets and all communities for us to use. So I'd appreciate the time for us to use that document to respond accordingly, and that we don't jeopardize and go the other way. And I understand the emotional part of this for some people, but it is very important that we're consistent and we use engineering judgment and guidance of the MUTCD when dealing with any of these scenarios. So with that, I would appreciate that extra time.
Police Chief, could you make a comment on any concerns you might have or thoughts?
Yeah, I would just like to say I agree with Craig. A lot of them, we had discussed this just over the last few weeks, and I agree with Trustee Newman as well. I think if you have no problem looking at these intersections, but I think the proper way to do them is the way we've done them in the past with a traffic count, or like I said, we did look at the traffic accidents in those intersections. We have not had any. Doesn't mean there hasn't been any close ones, but to this date we hadn't had any at all. So I would confer with Mr. Loudermilk that, like I said, I don't have any problems looking at them, but I think that would be the proper way to do it. So.
And we had looked at it, and in the memo to you was to further review the intersection of Oklahoma Pocono and Oklahoma Shiloh. We agreed to look into that in our memo to you before we decided that appropriate signage, and I think that would fall in line with Trustee Leach, that we'd like a little more time to review that one, especially like the comments you mentioned where we're going to connect to Jackson. If the rain quits, we'll be connecting to Jackson, and that almost certainly may change some traffic patterns too there. And then obviously I think the within Fieldstone, we can look at them closer, but I think they're very similar to every other subdivision in town, especially the newer ones, Orchard Hills, Trails of Timber Oaks, Thorn Ridge, are very similar. Now some of these have collector streets that go through them, like Stoneway, those, which is where you might see where it's identified as a through street. So yeah, I appreciate that, and I would like a little extra time to respond, so that at least going forward we know, if we're going to change the course of how we're going to be consistent or make decisions going forward, that we can do that in an orderly manner.
So any of the trustees have any other comments? Anything to add?
Yes, I'll move to table the vote.
I'm sorry?
I'll ask to table the vote.
Okay. Is there a second to table?
To allow time to...
Clint has made a motion to table this. to allow the staff to have time to look at this.
If it's tabled, does it have to come back in that form or revised?
Well, it would come back after the staff look at it correctly.
Correct.
I guess, well, I'll second the motion to table it.
Okay. Any comments before we call the roll?
The only thing I would say is it would seem like it would be better to turn it down and then have a revised ordinance to come back with, and I don't want to put any more work on, Craig's shoulders or Chief Miller's, but if they look at other subdivisions, when he talks about consistency, are there changes that they would make as well? I'm not saying do the whole town, I want you to know that, but should we give consideration to that term consistency and just do away with this ordinance, but give him the direction that we want this to be taken care of. We want it to be studied and then come back with a solution.
I'm thinking that essentially would occur, right? By tabling and,
In general terms, tabling this ordinance would bring, to your point before, it would bring the ordinance back before you in this form at a subsequent meeting, at which time it could be amended. If you were to vote down tabling and then vote down the ordinance, that doesn't preclude a different ordinance with different recommendations from coming back before you in a subsequent meeting. So it's two different paths that can both reach the same end. But
So in talking to council, he said if you voted down the amendment, voted that down, then the staff could look at it and bring back a different ordinance that included the changes that it seems to be some of you want, or part of this.
so at this point in time, we have to vote on
The amended motion first.
motion to table first and then come back.
Correct. So do we have any other comments? Are we ready to vote?
If he removes his second, do we have to vote on the tabling?
he could withdraw his second. It'd be my preference, since we have a motion and second, just vote it.
I call for the question.
Okay, I think that settles it. All right, we'll call the vote, and this will be for the amended motion to table it. Call the roll.
Leach.
No.
Lehman.
Yes.
Menold.
No.
Newman.
No.
Parrott.
No.
Motion is not passed to table.
All right. Now we have the motions to approve the existing document of
I
ordinance.
call for the question.
Okay. Call the roll.
Leach.
No.
Lehman.
Yes.
Menold.
No.
Newman.
No.
Parrott.
No.
Motion is not passed.
So it seems like we've told staff to come back with a recommendation and to look at other areas for consistency and safety priority. And Chief Miller, you'll help with that. Okay, next item.
I wish to bring forward to the board Resolution 02-22. So moved.
This motion,
Give me a second.
I'll second it.
okay. Would you like to make some comments on that?
Yes, please.
Okay.
For many conversations over the years, young families reaching out to me and even personal experiences, my family and many others believe that the crossing over Bull Run, which travels underneath East Jefferson Street near Lincoln's grade school, needs upgrades to the railings. Most crossings that I know of throughout our village have adequate railings throughout, which would prevent small children from falling into the creek beds or runoffs. With neighborhoods such as Orchard Hills and Fieldstone and other neighboring streets and subdivisions growing every year and attracting many young families, there are more children walking, riding bikes, etc. Across this crossing. This crossing is directly on the path in which many children take every day during the school year when weather permits. I know firsthand many families who have told their children to specifically walk on the edge of the street at the crossing in fear that their children may fall through the rails. The gaps are extremely wide, and for young persons, this can be very dangerous. All it would take is one child to not be paying attention when they're riding a bike, or to fall after hitting an obstruction within the sidewalk, or even just goofing around for a child to fall down to the creek bed, which sits over 10 foot below. For us to deeply regret not being more proactive. I am thankful that the board has been consistent, for the most part, in wanting children to be safe, even if times of financial burden. I am asking for the board support of Resolution 02-22 in order to start the bidding process of upgrading the railings of the crossing over Bull Run on East Jefferson Street. If you could play the video to at least so you can see the gaps we're talking about. So we're showing them how you can decrease the volume. You don't have to have the volume on. But anyway, so you can see the gaps right there. That bed is, if I had a tape measure, you could be able to see it. That's definitely over 10 foot below. And depending on how the weather is, it can be, if it's after a rain, that's where a lot of the rainfall goes, so it can be raging pretty good sometimes. With that being said, a lot of kids ride their bikes right up on the street here, all the way up to Lincoln School, which is only a couple blocks away. And so it wouldn't take much for a child, looks like my child's about to do that, and to fall through the railing, and of course, hopefully just get hurt, but sadly could probably be worse. And so a lot of the other railings that are throughout Morton, the gaps are a lot smaller. They're usually metal railings that have a good amount of width where there's no way a child could fit through. So.
All right. Any other comments?
If I could, Craig, any idea what you'd be talking as far as just the I guess preliminary engineering in this fiscal year?
Yeah, I did communicate with Trustee Lehman and contacted Kurt and Tom at Hanson. I haven't heard anything back, but my guess is we'd be in the 15 to 20 range engineering is my guess, just based on my experience.
And something that hasn't been budgeted this fiscal year, but could be handled.
Yeah, I think we got appropriation coming in July.
Right.
So, yeah.
It could be included at that time.
Craig, when was this bridge built? Do you know?
This bridge was built in 1974.
Okay, and we have what, yearly or bi-yearly or biannually inspected?
Yeah, so obviously any bridge over 20 feet falls into the category where it's has to be inspected biannually through the federal government. The state monitors that program. So we have 30 structures that we inspect. 11 of them fall under that program, and Tom DeJaro, structural engineer with Hanson, goes through all 30 of ours, but 11 of those, and this is one of those, gets inspected biannually.
Okay. I assume the railing, I'm not saying it is safe, but that hasn't come up in the inspections as far as...
No, there are other things on the structure that have come up as things to look in as we go forward. Okay. But yeah, nothing in particular there.
And as far as you know, the railings, and I think, I grew up kind of that neighborhood, many, many years ago, and I don't remember there ever being a railing different than what's there now. Do you know of anything different?
I've looked back and asked around. I'm sure there's some other people here. I can see a few in the room that may remember that more than me, but to my knowledge, I think it's been that way since the beginning. Yes.
Yeah, I believe that dates back to the original structure.
Yeah, and I guess my thought on that is not, I'm supportive of safety and taking a look at this bridge and having the engineering done to review it. But I guess with it not being budgeted and it been like this for the last 40 years, I don't see it as, if there was an emergency or something that we need to expend unbudgeted funds, then I would be supportive, but I don't see this as a, emergency expenditure that I would be supportive of doing. Maybe, perhaps next year, in next year's budget discussions, we can plan for it in the budget accordingly.
And in this one, it does have the raised sidewalk, as you saw there, with the railing. So whatever we do going forward would have to meet, we'd want to review vehicular crash safety data along with pedestrian access data. So I don't think it's as easy as putting up the same railing. Most likely you're going to get something that's bolted on the outside. Potentially if it gets into guardrail type stuff, now you're talking about length of need. I know the one at Monroe was mentioned, it doesn't have sidewalk, but it's like that double guardrail system. Some of those things won't meet standards going forward. So there's a potential that we would have to extend that length of need into the grass and put an appropriate attenuator on there. So always remember, while we're going to protect pedestrians, we also got to protect vehicles and crashes also.
Right. And I guess that kind of plays along to my, it's not just a $2,000, hey, we'll throw up new railing. It's much more complicated than that. You mentioned the engineering fees being $15,000 or $20,000 just for the engineering fees, which I don't doubt. Because there's a lot more things than just the railing to look at, and I would feel more comfortable that being budgeted for.
And I've looked into some of it, trying to look at different options, even to be prepared. I didn't have anything tonight, but do I think it's realistic to construct this year? Probably limited. It's probably next year if we did it. So I appreciate the ordinance as is, spending some time with a structural engineer and a transportation engineer to look at those things and at least do it the right way if we do it.
Nate, if you don't mind me asking, how many years has it been since you lived out there that way?
Well, I'm 39, and so it's probably been about 30 years.
Okay. So I've been there for 8 years. If we had this conversation 8 years ago when I moved there, I wouldn't have probably raised much of an issue. One, I probably wouldn't notice as much because I don't have young children. I have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old now. I have a third child in the way. And I can tell you, watching them ride their bikes is exciting. Both exciting, but also very, very scary at times. I think those who have children know that, kids that are riding bikes, unfortunately, don't always go straight, especially when they're 3 years old riding a bike. And as you can imagine, if he was on that sidewalk and he didn't go straight for just one moment, did one of his moments, said, "Hey, Dad, look at me," do one of those moments, that would be him down in the creek, and unfortunately wouldn't have my 3-year-old son anymore. So those type of things do get me thinking a little bit more. The other thing I can say in the past 8 years, what we've seen in that neighborhood is now there's a neighborhood there. Fieldstone did not exist, limited, I should say, 8 years ago. There was a handful of homes. It's now boomed. Pocono, there was 2 homes available. Now there's, they're going to clear out. It's going all the way out to Jackson. Orchard Hills, it continues to grow. Orchard Hills is a little bit older, so to speak, than Fieldstone. But those neighborhoods are booming and growing and attracting a lot of young families. So this need, why a child has not fallen to their death yet, Lord, that's great. That's awesome. But the risk goes up every day. And so I think that just because there's some things that we haven't budgeted for, this is something that I think is important. Go through that, of course. This isn't voting and making a new railing today. We're going through the engineering aspects of it. But when it does come time, if it is a little bit more than we were hoping for, I would hope that we can find a way that these children and their lives are worth more than making sure that it's covered in the budget for this year.
If I could add too, we do have some barrels out there now, so we're spending $100,000 now. I'm not trying to. I know when people go look at that and they see barrels out there tomorrow, Autobahn should be starting that real soon, and that's over $100,000. Hopefully, we can add some safety to the curb that came in there. We're going to redo all that. Hopefully, move the pole back. So, I think we're committed to the safety there. And as we discussed, I appreciate that, and I think over time, that's definitely something we definitely want to look at. I think you had mentioned that too, Trustee.
Yeah. Again, with safety as a utmost concern for all of us, I think that we should go about this in an organized and well-planned manner per budget. And I would move that we table this until we have a plan put together and go forward from there.
That used to be the end of town when I was a kid, until those subdivisions did. You didn't ride a bike path there because the road's too narrow, because my grandparents lived out there. So that was the end of town, and that was built at that standard. So when me and Craig looked at it this week, that's not really in compliance. Today's standard is no more than the one on Monroe with the double railing. And neither one are up to standard of what Morton would want today. In talking to Craig and him showing me doing the curbs for the safety of the cars and the water problem, we're getting that fixed. I think we definitely got to replace those railings. It may go into even a little wider at the top in order to get away from the edge for a kid to fall off. So I think we have to get it to the engineers, get the work done, get it replaced, and then we need to look at a couple of those others right away, because we do have that problem in other places. But we're going to have to spend the money on engineering this year and get it done, because I don't think we have the in-house abilities of knowing exactly what to do to today's standards when you do have to maintain the car crashes. I didn't realize that till we looked at it. We have to worry about as much about the car crashes as the kids, and that's all going to go into that design. So that railing may go out quite a ways. The same similar situation is down by Grimm Electric. We had the same thing, and there was no railing. But when we invite hundreds of thousands of people to the Pumpkin Festival, I had the staff put a fence on that one. So you'll see a stainless steel fence behind the liquor station on that same kind of exact embankment. So we do worry about safety. So short of putting a fence type thing on it for now, I don't see how we can do anything with it so embedded in the concrete. So I think the sooner we get the engineering done.
So it sounds, it sounds to me like we're saying that we really do need to do something.
Absolutely.
And I think, expenditure of several $1,000s, even though it wasn't budgeted this year, but at least it gets us moving in that direction as far as looking at it, see what needs to be done, so that we can be planning on budgeting that next year. I don't see any way that we're gonna, even if we had the money appropriated, we're not gonna see construction this year. But at least we can get moving forward over the course of this year and see what's gonna be necessary to address that particular structure. And there are other structures in town. I keep hearing Monroe. Again, I feel like we got some structures on the wood streets crossing the Prairie Creek flume that are similar situations where children can easily fall under the railing that's there now. So we gotta start somewhere, so let's start on this one.
And we looked at maybe adding something, but it's so cost preventive. I think we have to do the engineering and get going on it. So we have a motion to table. We had a second?
No.
Is there?
Point of clarification, if we do approve as is we're authorizing to go ahead though with the bidding process now, but that wouldn't happen this year then, or?
If you're asking me, I would appreciate to use the same process we do with other projects, and I'm not sure the need tonight, in my opinion, and I'm already working with Hanson, and I'd be glad to bring a proposal back. I would like to maybe meet with a few of you and come back, even as we do a proposal, to get some of your thoughts and input too, whether that's the mayor or, there are different and you know this, Nate, but I think I could work on a proposal just in general without the formal of tonight too. I don't know if that's an appropriate thing in that way, but that process has already started.
So, Mr. Barrett, are you basically wanting to strike paragraph 2?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're not bidding it?
Yeah, not bidding.
Not bidding it.
I'm agreeable to moving forward with the engineering or procurement of engineering services. I'll make that as a motion to strike paragraph 2 and move forward with only the procurement of the engineering services.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a first and a second of amended motion that would delete number 2 of the current ordinance in place.
Yes.
All right, any other comments before we call the roll? We'll vote on the amended ordinance first.
On the amendment to the resolution specifically. So what you're doing is if you vote yes, you're voting strike paragraph 2.
Which is authorizing engineering.
Paragraph 2 authorizes bidding. Paragraph 1 authorizes, it would leave in the paragraph authorizing the Director of Public Works to procure engineering services.
I will bring you back a proposal, detailed.
Then at that time, we can talk about bidding it. So does that answer all the questions? We know what we're voting on? All right, clerk, call the roll.
Mennel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Parrott.
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Anything else?
So we need to approve the amendment, so now we need to vote on the resolution as amended. And we had a motion, a second on that, so in the absence of further discussion, Your Honor, can
Call the roll.
Newman.
Yes.
Parrott.
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Mennel.
Yes.
Motion passes.
That is a lot of amended motions tonight. Anything else?
That's all.
All right, we have no need, any other trustees have anything tonight? If not, we do not need closed session, but we do have a couple awards here. So clerk, I'd like to thank you for your years of service, and in recognition of your service to the citizens of Morton, thank you.
Thank you.
And for your kind words tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you all.
Trustee Lehman, thank you for your 4 years service, and for the citizens, in recognition of your service.
Thank you. I appreciate your honor. I do have a couple words.
Don't go ahead.
I want to first off thank the villagers and constituents of Morton for allowing me to the honor and opportunity to serve as a trustee to the village board. It was a good opportunity to see firsthand the fundamentals of what makes the village of Morton a great community that it is. It was a worthy endeavor, which was not a lack of effort or even trials at times. I would also like to thank those who served along my side over the past 4 years and putting up with me. I also would like to thank the president of the board, Jeff Kaufman, for your great deal of effort that you put into the position. I chose not to rerun for this position, being that I have a third child who is due in 2 to 4 weeks, and with a career which has a lot of demand already as far as time is concerned. This will allow me more time with my growing family, whom I am very thankful for. Thank you again to everyone who allowed me this opportunity. It was an honor.
Thanks to both of you. And now we'd like to, we're going to have a motion. We need to have a motion to sign die.
Second.
Call the roll.
Sounds nice to me.
Parrott.
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Mennel.
Yes.
Kaufman. We're adjourned. Sign die.
That's it.
All right.
Leave this one.
raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Nate Parrott.
I, Nate Parrott,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois.
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of village trustee
of the office of village trustee
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Newman, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Ken Newman,
I, Ken Newman,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of village trustee
of the office of village trustee
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Craig Hilliard,
I, Craig Hilliard,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of village trustee
of the office of village trustee
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
If you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Jeff Kaufman,
I, Jeff Kaufman,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of village president
of the office of village president
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations. Mr. Evans, if you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Zoe Evans,
I, Zoe Evans,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of village clerk
of the office of village clerk
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
I would ask the clerk to call the roll.
Hilliard.
Here.
Leach.
Here.
Menold.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
Parrott.
Here.
Quorum.
We have a quorum.
All right, I do have 4 or 5 items here. We need to reappoint Joe Worth to the Police Pension Board. His term would be through 4/30/24. If I could have a motion?
So moved. Second.
I'd ask to call the, we're going to have to call the roll on each one.
You could.
Let me add 4 more to that, so we get them all done at the same time. Also, we need the reappointment of Ken Helmuth to the Police and Fire Commission, term through 4/30/24. The appointment of Michael Yordi to the Planning Commission, term through 4/30/26. Appointment of Bill Opperly to the Planning Commission, term through 4/30/24. And the appointment of Scott Kelso to the Zoning Board of Appeals, term 4/30/24. If we could have a motion for all of those.
So moved. Second.
And ask the clerk to call the roll.
Hilliard.
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Menold.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Parrott.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And if we could have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.